We're going to work through 3 goals on this screencast. The first is we're going to think about what this whole 5 lesson plan progression assignment is about. The second is we're going to think about how we can use a block plan as a way of organizing for writing the lessons in the 5 lesson plan progression. And finally, we're going to look at a little technique called the scavenger hunt that we'll use to find resources for your 5 lesson plan progression. You're going to want to print off the 5 lesson plan progression block plan template. Now, normally this is an 11 by 14 print off that I would give you in class, and it would have all of the 5 days of the lesson plan progression on one sheet. You're going to find that your file has 3 separate sheets for this, one for Monday and Tuesday, another one for Wednesday and Thursday, and a third one for Friday. That's just so you can print it out on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. If you would like to print it off and then handwrite your block plan, that's perfectly fine. Then you'll just share with me images of the paper that you create. Or you could download this document and then type right into it and share that with me via email as a Word document. Generally, what we're doing here is we're creating, instead of a one-day lesson plan, we're creating a series of lessons. They are going to start on Monday and finish on Friday. And you'll notice that we're going to sketch out on this block plan some of the elements that we include in a lesson plan. So we have a learning goal, which will develop in a lesson plan into the behavioral objective. We have opening moves, clear demonstration of the new concept, guide in practice, or a linking activity. A linking activity is simply when you ask students to read or write the new phonics feature. And then at the end of each day, Monday through Thursday, you have some formative assessment that you've planned. Formative assessment at the end of each day just helps you see if students are on track to accomplish the learning goal of that day. And because we're really thinking about teaching a phonics feature across these 5 lessons, you'll notice that the summative assessment does not happen until Friday. And that summative assessment is going to be a spelling test. That's going to help us see if kids can produce this phonics feature. You will be completing this individually if you are going to do your 5 lesson plan progression assignment as an individual. If you'd like to work on your 5 lesson plan progression with a partner, now's the time to make that plan to work with the partner. I would like you and your partner then to complete 1 lesson plan progression block plan and scavenger hunt. So start collaborating now. I would suggest, if you want to collaborate with a partner on this, that you upload the template to a Google Doc, and that way you can both work on authoring that document. You will then just send me 1 block plan if you're working with a partner and 1 scavenger hunt with both authors' names on it. I'm going to be demonstrating how to do a lesson plan progression, and I'm going to focus on the short vowel A. I know that none of you will be teaching the short vowel A. I'm going to assign you the phonics feature that you're going to teach for your 5 lesson plan progression, and you should be getting an email, and I'll tell you exactly what the phonics feature is I'd like you to focus on. I'm going to be thinking about short vowel A, so I'm going to kick off my 5-day lesson plan progression by showing kids a short video from a PBS series called Between the Lions. Here it is.
And now, lovers of the vowels A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y, tap your feet as Martha Reader and the Vowels sing their fantastic hit about the short A sound.
When you see an A, crazy vowel A, and it's standing by chance between 2 consonants, then you say that A, I. 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 You see A caught between N and B, there's awfully mad. And A in between B and D will always be bad. When you see an A, crazy about A, and it's standing by chance between two consonants. Then you say that A, you say that A, you say that A, you say that A.
So that is how I might introduce a 5-day lesson plan progression. Now, one of the first things I want you to do when you're thinking about your lesson plan progression is you're going to complete these first 3 questions. The first question asks you to think about the central focus of the lesson plan. The central focus is just what is the feature that you want students to learn. And you want to also write what feature you're going to compare that new feature to. So when you figure out what your new feature is, you'll get that through an email. If I tell you that you're teaching the new feature EE, which is an other long vowel, you know that E occurs in the middle of words like speed and need. So when you think about what you're going to compare that word to, the step back category or the known category should be something that does occur also in the middle of the word. And you want to also make that step back or known category be a category that is in an earlier part of the stage or in an earlier stage. So if I'm teaching the long vowel pattern EE, which occurs in the middle of words in the within word stage, I'm going to compare that to maybe short E, which occurs in the letter name stage. So it's easier and it's also in the middle. So make sure that you're comparing your 2 features that are your head categories on your sorts. Make sure that they occur in the same location in a word. You'll fill in this part then. What's your new feature, the one that I assigned you via email, and what are you going to compare that new feature to? What would be something known and in the same location as your feature? Then I want you to come up with a list of 10 to 12 spelling words that feature only features that are in that stage. And so you want to only make fair words. And you want to make just 10 to 12 words because we're going to assume that in learning this feature, kids are not only learning those particular 10 to 12 words, but they'll also learn how to spell new words that they hear that feature in. So we don't need to have a big list of 25 words. 10 to 12 will be just fine. And you write what your spelling words are going to be for this unit. Then I want you to look up the 2nd grade standard. This is, we're going to assume that we're teaching these features in a 2nd grade. And I want you to look up the Ohio Literacy 4th grade standard that would be appropriate for this central focus. You want to record that standard like we have done on other lesson plans where you give the code. So it might be reading foundations 2 point something or other. And then you also add the text, what is the actual verbiage of that standard. So here's an example for my short vowel lesson. If I'm going to teach a short vowel A, that's the new feature here. And I've made a note that, unfortunately, this is a very easy feature. It's in letter name stage. And my students don't know any other vowels yet. So in letter name stage, there's nothing really that they can compare in that middle part of a word if they don't know any other short vowels. So I'm going to make the sort very simple by having the child compare the short A sound to just a not short A category. That would be the easiest way you could form a sort. Your sorts will all be in the within word stage. So you'll have a lot easier time finding this known category than I did. And then I have my words. These are the spelling words that my students are going to learn across the 5-day lesson plan progression. You'll notice that they all have fair features in them. I'm not using any complex consonants or R-controlled vowels. These are all short A words with letter name stage features. And then I have a 2nd grade standard here, the code as well as the verbiage. All right, now that gets me started. I know across these 5 days I'm teaching short A, but I kind of have to start thinking about, well, what am I going to do here in these blocks? So the next few moves, I'm going to kind of walk you through steps. And if you want to, you could watch, a step and then try to do it on your block plan before advancing the video to the next step. That's completely up to you. Or you can watch the whole video and then just go back and complete the work, whichever works for you. The first thing you want to think about across the 5 days is you want the work to become more challenging across the lessons. So right here, I just pulled up the goal section of this 5-lesson progression. And I'm going to assume that my Monday goal, the first thing I do Monday is going to be easier than the thing I do Tuesday, and then the thing I do Wednesday. So I have 3 goals here. I have read the new feature, hear and sort the new feature, and write the new feature. So what I want you to do is think a minute about which of these is the easiest goal. Is it easier for kids to write the feature, or read the feature, or hear the feature and sort it? The easiest thing would go here at Monday. The next easiest thing would go here on Tuesday. And the most complicated thing is going to start over here on Wednesday. So take a minute and think about where you would sort these 3 codes. And when you come up with your idea, then progress the video. So here's what I think. I think hearing and sorting is the easiest thing. You're just looking at pictures when you hear and sort a feature. So they're going to hear the feature first on Monday. And then on Tuesday, they'll be ready to read that feature. It's easier for kids to read a feature than it is for them to write it. So we're going to do hearing, reading, and then writing. Now, you could combine some of these things. So it would be okay to say on Monday, I'm going to have students hear and sort the new feature. Then I'm going to have them read it. And then I could say, well, maybe Wednesday I'm going to have them read and write the new feature. That's okay. I'm kind of combining these 2. And then Thursday and Friday I'm writing. The idea is we're still starting with easy work, hearing the sound, and then building up to the more complicated work of writing the sound later in the week. So across your 5 lessons, you want the work to become more challenging as you go across. So a good idea might look something like this. Start with hearing and sorting, then go to reading, then reading and writing, and then the last 2 days work on writing. Let me show you some bad ideas. What you don't want to do is this. Right? You don't want to start with writing. It's the hardest thing. And then go to reading and then hearing and sorting. That doesn't make sense. This is not going from easy work to more difficult work over time. You also don't want to do this. You might be tempted to say, well, I need to have more time having kids hear and sort the sounds and then move into reading. But what that leaves you with is Friday, the day that kids are taking the spelling test, is the first day they're ever writing that word. And that's probably not sufficient practice. Up here, we had kids starting to write the word on Wednesday. And you really do need kids to be in that writing or producing mode as soon as you can. Usually if you have teachers who want to spend more time on the hearing and sorting and the reading, these would be teachers who would probably, instead of using a 5-day lesson plan progression, would do 2 weeks. And so they might have 2 days of hearing, 2 days of reading, and then they could continue this on next week in terms of having kids have some writing opportunities. All right, so let's go back to our original plan. We have 5 days and we start with easy work, hearing and sorting, and progress to more difficult work of writing. Now, we know that on Friday we're going to do a spelling test, so we know what the work is there. But for these other days, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday and Thursday, we have to think, okay, if we want kids to hear and sort a new feature, what kind of sort could we use for that clear demonstration? So part of your work this term was to learn all these sorts. Hopefully you know what these sorts are. And you have to think, well, which of these sorts really focuses on hearing and sorting the sounds of a new feature? What I'd like you to do is just kind of think about which sorts would you put under these different goals. Where would you put them? What kind of sort really helps kids write a new feature? What kind of sort helps them read a new feature? So take a minute to think about that, and then after you have, you can push play on the video again. All right, so here's what I'm thinking. If I want kids to hear and sort a new feature on Monday, then I'm going to probably do a sound sort. So that's where we're sorting pictures, or a blind sort, where I'm reading the word, not showing kids the word, but putting it on the dry erase or chalkboard and not showing them the word until they've sorted those cards by hearing me read them. So those are the two sorts that focus on sound. What's the one sort that really focuses on having kids read the new feature in a word? Yep, that's the pattern sort. Kids are also finding and reading that new feature when they do a word hunt. If you can't remember a word hunt, that's where you give them a story or a poem, and you might ask kids to highlight the feature that you just taught. So in this poem, we're having kids highlight the short E's, and then in a word that looks like it would be a short E, but it's not, they just cross it out so they know it's not an example. And in this word hunt work, this shows kids how they can use this known feature, this feature that they're learning, to actually decode or read some words. The next day, if we're going to have kids read and write the new feature, well, we could use a pattern sort to help them read the feature. And here's an example of that pattern sort. We have all the word cards here, and kids are going to sort by short A or short I. Now, for my students, remember, they don't know short I yet, so I have to make this category one of those A's with the line through it, so it's like a not A category. They'd read the card and then put it under the right category. I need to get them writing, though, and what I could do is I could do this little technique called rainbow writing. So after they sort the cards, they could take all of the cards that are under the A category, and they could write them or trace over them first with red, and then with orange, and then with yellow, and then with green, and then with blue and purple and magenta and whatever you have. But the idea here is they are creating a rainbow as they're writing over that word. And that also gives them 5 or 6 times of forming that word. Now, I always instruct kids to write the whole word in one color, T-H-A-T, with their green marker, and then go over the whole word again with their blue marker, T-H-A-T, so that they're really practicing forming or writing that whole word. If we want kids to write a new feature, we do a writing sort. And we know that on Friday, we're going to have kids maybe do a little bit of a review. So I could have them do a speed sort. That would be good for review. Certainly, you would never put the speed sort as the first thing you're doing on Monday, right? It would be very frustrating for kids to be pressured to do it quickly. And then Friday, we know we're going to give them the spelling test. So in this next step, what you're doing is you're finding which sorts will help you accomplish or clearly demonstrate this goal. So on your block plan, you're filling in the clear demonstration. You're just giving yourself a little bit of a reminder of what kind of sort you're going to use to accomplish this learning goal. If I want to have kids hear and sort the new feature, I'm going to do a closed teacher blind sort, or I could put a closed teacher directed sound sort, right? If I want kids to read the new feature, I'm going to do a word hunt. So your clear demonstration is one of your word study sorts, and you can just write those in. The next piece on your progression then is you need to have some kind of guided practice or linking activity that is helping kids accomplish this goal. So on Monday, if I did a closed teacher-directed blind sort, I want kids to think about the sounds of letters. As guided practice, I want to make sure that I am giving them something to do where they are actually now showing me they understand the concept. So within any lesson, you're going to follow what's called the gradual release of responsibility, which means at first you as the teacher are demonstrating the learning. So I could do a closed teacher-directed blind sort. I'm really teaching kids how to hear and sort that new feature. And then I'm going to release responsibility to those kids and let them try it. I want to go from I'll show you to you try it here in the guided practice. So what might that look like? All right. For the first day, if I want kids to hear and sort the new feature, I'm going to do a closed teacher-directed blind sort. And then when I'm finished with that sort, I could follow up by giving kids picture cards with that same feature and have them work with a buddy to do a buddy sound sort. These are both sorts that are focused on hearing and sorting a new feature. If I want kids to read a new feature, I'm going to maybe have them do a word hunt. And then after their word hunt, I could have them do a buddy word hunt. So they could both look at a new piece of text after I show them how to do it to find all of the examples of the phonics feature that I introduced on Monday. On Wednesday, I might want kids to now read and write the new feature that I introduced on Monday and Tuesday. So I'm going to do this with a closed teacher-directed pattern sort. And then as a way of giving them some practice on reading and writing this new feature, I could find a little worksheet like this one. And I like this worksheet because the answer is not just A. They don't just have to write A every time here. So if the word has an A sound in it, I would have my students write the A. And if it doesn't have the A sound in it, like in let's say, no, where I got gum, in gum, it does not have the A sound, I would just have them cross that out. So I like this worksheet because it really makes them think about, does this word have the sound that I've learned? And then can I write that sound in? Can I form that A? On Thursday then, I might be doing my purpose is to get kids to write the new feature. So I'm doing a closed teacher-directed writing sort. And at the end of this work, I want to have some kind of activity where the kids are writing it now on their own. So again, I'm going to give them a little worksheet here where they're writing in the phonics feature. Now, I know this isn't a good example of a short vowel worksheet, but I just wanted to give you the idea of a worksheet that required kids to write the feature. And then my last day, I have the spelling test. So here's the real complexity of a unit is across days, you want the work to become more challenging. You're still learning the same phonics feature across all of these days, but you want the work to start easy with tasks like hearing the sound, and then move on to progressively more difficult targets like reading the sound and then finally writing the sound. Within any one day within the lesson plan, you always want to start with the teacher providing a really good demonstration and then releasing the responsibility to the students to do that same kind of learning, show that same kind of learning, either with a buddy or independently. So there's two sort of directions that you're thinking about your lessons as you're designing these blocks. Now, what we're writing in these block plans that I've just explained to you are I've given you a really sort of minimal example to get us started, right? My blocks only had learning goals, clear demonstration, and guided practice or linking activities. Your lesson plan blocks will have more things to consider. And we're going to move on to thinking about these more complex blocks. So I just have my learning goal would go right up here. My clear demonstration is going to go here, and my guided practice right here. I just need to kind of think through, what am I going to do for these opening moves? Remember, opening moves are a little bit of review. You tell kids what they already know, and then you're going to move forward into telling them what they're going to learn that day. And then formative assessment here is just me figuring out a way to see if I can tell if kids are learning the focus feature in their guided practice. Each day of your block plan is also going to need to be related to the next day. So you need to make connections across these lessons. And the way you make these connections is whatever you taught yesterday in that clear demonstration, you need to talk about in the next day when you're doing the review or opening moves. So if you want to remind yourself to do this, the way to do it is to just use this sentence stem. You know, yesterday we learned how to read the phonics feature short A. Today we are going to learn how to write the phonics feature short A. And you want to provide a little bit of review here. So when I say, yesterday we learned how to read the short vowel A, let me show you 4 cards that have short vowel A words, and let's see if you can read them. So that would be me giving them a chance to review before we move into the new objective. So today, since yesterday we learned to read the short A words, today we're going to learn to write those short A words. All right, so this has been a lot. So I would suggest right now you do a little stretch break before we actually look at a 5-day lesson plan progression example. So here's 2 things I want you to do. I want you to take a stretch break. And stretch breaks are kind of easy to do with kids. You can insert in your lessons these kind of video stretch breaks. Or you could just walk kids through, some little exercises in their seats. But you take a little bit of a stretch break. And then after your stretch break, what I want you to do is to print off or read online the short A lesson plan progression block plan example. So on that block plan, you'll see a block plan just like the blank one you have. And I've written in my answers in blue. So if you're looking at it on the screen, you can see my answers in blue. And I just want you to read through that 5-day block plan. After you've read through it, come back to the second part of the screencast and we'll talk through how I created that block plan. And then I'll show you how to find some of the resources that are part of that block plan. So take a break, read the block plan example for short A, and then come back to the second part of the screencast.